It sure is. Look at that. All right, desktop number 2. There we are. Can you guys see my desktop? This probably looks pretty familiar. It was, it was just shown to us. Yeah. And you guys are killing it with sort of keeping things organized, by the way. Good job. I saw lots of different layers, sub-layers, sort of thinking about how you take these sort of strata, these floor levels, and sort of keep things organized, right? Things are color coded, which helps keep things sort of understandable here. So what I wanted to show you guys really quickly were some things like, let's see, I'm just going to turn this back to ISO, 3030 ISO really quickly. It's always the last one, isn't it? All right, maybe southeast. Nope, south. West. Just wanted to see it kind of like how yeah, there we go. All right, go ahead and try to pan that. But one thing I could always do, if I go to top view, for instance, I'll make a copy here. I'll make it off to the side. This is a copy of yours. I'm just going to take these drawings and just delete them on mine. But one thing I could begin to do is start to find ways to explode these things. In other words, to pull them apart, almost like, you guys ever see those old Popular Mechanics magazines, these sort of paper-based things that you would pick up and read when you were like at the doctor's office or the dentist's office or at the car shop getting your car worked on or something, when you get your smog test, whatever. They have these beautiful diagrams of like, a transmission and then the case being pulled off and all the bolts then pulled off. And then all the stuff inside, you'd pull off gears and it would usually arranged in an axonometric or an isometric drawing, right? These things sort of exploded outwards, right? In one direction or the other to sort of show the larger assembly is actually a bunch of components and how they go together, right? Have you guys seen those? They're pretty sweet. I'll try to find some, but suffice to say, we can do the same thing when it comes to these models, right? And I think there's a lot of different ways we could begin to think about these sort of Axon drawings that we can produce for diagrams that we can produce from these massing models. But the first one, the sort of lowest hanging fruit here, I would say, is thinking in terms of just simply popping these things up floor by floor so you can begin to see sort of what's underneath. If that's almost a repeat, then maybe I don't need to see the other backside of it. Let's see here if I can pan this enough to see. There we go. And so in this way, right, I could begin to, more easily see, how do I say this? Like what kinds of things are actually here and sort of pulling it apart, right? Another way of thinking about this, and this is kind of what you guys did, but you could actually do this as a sort of snapshot of diagrams, is to think about what the sort of the basis is, right? And you just sort of build it up a snapshot by snapshot. So for instance, if I see this overall drawing, and then, I turn all this other stuff off, and, I say, let's see here, I have blue, oh, core. Red would also be lobby, right? So let me, here we go. Cafe, right? So if I said, let's say this is sort of service and circulation and cores, right? And, I could have dashed in just the outline of the overall building shape, right? But I'm only highlighting these parts, right? And then next one, I put in the cafe, in the gallery, or not, maybe not the gallery, the cafe and the lobby, right? And then these get grayed out and they become, because I saw them in the last snapshot, but then the new stuff this red thing and these pink things, right, are then the things that are given better line weight, right? And then the next snapshot, I sort of build this up. Now I have the galleries, right? Okay. And then, if I need to, I can just sort of, again, dash everything out again, and then just show workshop and storage stuff, right? And the communal stuff and the classrooms, right? And all this other stuff might be turned off, right? But I still have the basic outline of the building dashed in, right? Then you can start to see either a large vertical drawing that's exploded with little, labels and stuff like that on it, or a legend, a color-coded legend. Or you can think about or see a sort of snapshot of axons that sort of tell this story of building up the building, right? Like your decision making. First, we start with the cores. There's going to be one in the center, two over here. Next, it's about how we enter. We go up this big atrium. Now we wrap that with the galleries, right? And so if you think about how you would explain this, that begins to talk about a sequence for you, a narrative for you to sort of try to communicate graphically, okay? So let me show you a few examples. First, exploded axon, right? Just so you sort of see examples of exploded axons, right? You see these things all the time, right? Especially in architecture, but in all kinds of other things, right? There's an exploded axon, right? So we start to understand, we see that where the core is, but then we lift up all the floor plates, right? So we can start to see what's happening on the inside a little bit, right? Same thing there, or lifting up the roof, right? Here's a non-exploded axon. This is exploded perspective. This isn't an axon, right? This is a perspective. They mislabeled that. Here's another exploded perspective, right? We're getting away from axons here. Let's see. You can explode things out in different directions, right? Laterally, right? Those 30-30 angles, as well as vertically, if you need to, right? Exploded axon. Let me see if they have any of these popular mechanics. These sort of cutaway exploded axon drawings of like machines. Oh man, they do. Oh, here's one, right? Actually, this is kind of a cutaway, but you get the idea, I guess, right? This sort of axon of all these mechanical gizmos. Oh, here's one. Here's a camera, exploded axon of a camera. Oh, maybe I can find a bigger example here. There we go. Yeah. So there's the body pulled apart, buttons pulling up, and dials pulling off the top upwards. The lens and aperture mechanisms being pulled forward. The housing around the back end being pulled backwards, right? Sort of talking about the insides and then exploding those out even further, right? Okay, so you can always think in terms of that as a sort of exploded axon. Again, I was just thinking the other day, I had some examples that I've bookmarked here. I'm just gonna, here we go. Here's an exploded axon. Kind of a weird scheme. Hi, Camry. I'm talking a little bit about stuff, and I'm recording this, so you'll be able to watch later on. Okay.
Perfect. Thank you.
And welcome. Glad you were able to make it finally. I can imagine, like on a day like today, everything's hot and everybody's like grouchy, like driving down the freeway and stuff.
Exactly.
Like,
construction, running late. It was all fun.
So let me find some good axon drawings, sort of talking about this sort of snapshotting process that I mentioned before. Let's see if this is one. It's not. Okay, let me just find a couple here. Well, there's a nice axon, the large one, right? A big area, kind of like your downtown models. Here's where you can, basically use your section cuts, your clipping plane on your axons and show, what's happening on the inside, right? And then pull out a whole floor plate by itself if you want. There's a clipping plane through an atrium, right? And a lobby and stairway. And so, you're not there yet with details like columns and braces and stairways and curtain walls or anything yet, but sort of gives you ideas, right? Let's see here. That was an Axon, but not a helpful one. There was a few here that I think would be really, I was thinking of specifically that would be really handy for you to see. I'm trying to find them. My apologies, I can't. Ah, here we go. Here's another one where you can sort of cut things with the clipping plane, sort of see inside. We were looking at, just to fill you in, Camry, while I'm looking through this, we were looking at what folks have been working on and with their masking models again. And then I'm talking about how we can start to make diagrams where we can start to sort of visualize these things better, how we can explode them so we can sort of see what's going on in the inside or on all four sides, sort of in the round a little better. Let me just, wanted to show a couple of examples here. Here's one where you sort of build up things up piece by piece, right? I'm not sure what this is, but looks like something here and then this around it and then more stuff. And so slowly it grows, right? That sort of snapshotting, although I'm not sure, how useful this is for you, but let's see here. There was a couple of them I saw the other day. Here's color coding, right? Here they're cutting some section cuts through this, right? Here they've pulled things apart. And so here's one thing you could think about, right? Taking all those volumes and labeling them out here, right? Sort of here's, you could easily see this being, here's gallery, here's workshop and lab, here's classroom number 1, classroom number 2, blah, blah, blah. And then you sort of show them how they're stacked over here, right? I hope these examples are sort of helpful. I mean, you don't know what you haven't seen, right? And so, again, I don't believe in like you guys just trying to reinvent the wheel. It's not that you're copying, but at the same, here's an idea here, right? These are all different vantage points of the same scheme, but you can see inside, right? And so certain things are dashed or X-rayed, and then certain things are actually darker, and then even just a little bit of tone or gray, right? Just to sort of help highlight this inside piece. So you can sort of see it from all different directions. Here we have an explosion, right? So we cut it and then we exploded it. This is obviously much more detailed and it has furniture and materials and things like that inside at the moment, right? But there's a sort of a wall section. Let's see. All right, let's jumping the gun, I guess, at this point. Oh, what? Okay. Why is this page not available? Leave it to Instagram. Leave it to me. As soon as I actually want to show Instagram to people, Instagram goes down or something. That'd just be my luck. You guys are like, Instagram is so old. I can't believe you're still on it anymore, Josh. Let's see. There were a couple of really good ones. Sorry, I might just have to dig through. I like a lot of things on Instagram. So you can see they're almost, I'm a one-trick pony here. I like, you can tell the different accounts that I follow on Instagram. They're not like, culinary things. They're architecture things, right? Let's see. So this one was an interesting one. It's sort of exploded one, right? Sort of pulling out different parts and exploding them upwards. A little bit of cartography in here. Yeah, it's not so bad. There's a couple photographs in here. Yeah. That's interesting. Sorry, I'm going off topic now. Again, exploded Axon, right? I'm not sure what this other stuff is, but that's definitely an exploded Axon. Those actually have floor plates that they were exploding outwards. Oh, come on, really? What in the world? I have to go all the way through this again. Maybe I'll just keep scrolling as fast as I can until I find something that's useful. I have to start doing this stuff before class and getting it all ready, I guess. I usually find this stuff and I make a note to myself, like show them this, show them that, but then I don't like bookmark it per se. Maybe I open a new tab and that way I don't lose my place each time. Here's an axon that's been exploded, right? Again, these are really highly detailed drawings. They're not just like massing models at this point, like you have, right? But there's certainly, yeah, here's a bunch of massing axons, right? This is a couple of really good drawings here, I promise you. That one's kind of nice. And again, that's an exploded axon. This one is too. This one looks like it's the same thing, aren't they? Um, I really actually thought I had a list of these, but maybe not. Here's one. Try to build these things up and I'll just keep driving through. I'm just about done here, and then let's talk about some of these examples here. Some of these Axon. But when it comes to sort of viewing these things, right, these massings, you need to start looking at them not just three-dimensionally in Axon, but also we were talking about cutting them in section and potentially looking at them in plan, or at least to start extracting plan information that you can develop into the sort of really nice detailed plan drawings. Hey, that looks familiar, doesn't it? Huh. There you go, Brent.
They stole my idea.
They sure did, those jerkwads. Maybe there's one, or there's one specifically that I'm looking for. Oh, here, where you're starting to highlight certain things and bold certain things. Okay. Ooh, that's beautiful. Sorry. I mean, you guys are thinking probably at your desk, like, I paid tuition to watch my professor scroll through Instagram. That is so bad. All right, hold on. I swear I'm like really am looking for like a really nice, some more examples to really look at here. Okay. But the other thing about a sort of idea of a sequence of axons is you can begin to sort of lay out, like the sort of design operations or geometric operations or moves that you're making step by step, right? So it's still not coming up yet. Here, maybe I'll try that one, try this one. Maybe I'm getting closer. There's an exploded one. This is endless. That's a nice one. see what they have in this one here. Um, So I might just look through this later on in more detail, and if I find some super good examples, I'll email them to you or put them on Canvas. But again, this idea of taking something larger and exploding it out, breaking it apart into pieces so you can sort of see these things, right? These are some pretty odd geometries, unlike what most of you have, but you can easily see this sort of translating into sort of blocks being pulled apart, right? Vertically or in 30-degree sort of directions here. There's another one similar. Right. Here's one snapshot of the same thing, but each time you have something that's highlighted differently, sort of showing, let's say, the grid here, this wall here, this thing that turns down here, and then this sort of stuff back here, right? So each time they're sort of showing, two snapshots of the same thing, but emphasizing different things in each one, right? Then we get to some of the other types of drawings. Okay. Oops, I think I just accidentally unliked it. Whatever. Another exploded axon, right? This one actually has frame and massing and roof and stuff like that. And then, what's interesting is as a legend, they sort of said, here's the kit of parts, right? Here's these, so many of these, so many of these, so many of these, so many of these. Right. So you can think of, there's not just one way of doing this stuff, in other words, okay? Here you can sort of see, again, there's color used. The sort of pinkish red is being used to sort of show the architectural intervention that we're looking at. Then the sort of lavender, light lavender, bluish sort of monochromatic context, it just sort of fades to the back, right? So then we start to see, again, the line weights used. So this is where our eye needs to go, right? This is what they want us to see. This is the context around, right? What's already there versus what's new, right? So again, thinking about a device, graphics is a device to sort of steer people's eyes with hierarchy and emphasis, right? That's just a really nice drawing. Let's see if they have, oh, those are big plans, those are plans. Okay. I don't know what that is, but eesh. Here's a roofscape for those of you who might fancy something like that. All right, that's just an axon. Yeah, again, just an axon, looks like. Oh, okay. But again, sort of seeing like that last one, sort of set of diagrams or, here's how you can use your clipping planes in Axon, right? Sort of see inside. Here's an example. This is an Axon, a set of this is the exact same location over and over again, but they're building things up snapshot by snapshot. Here's the plot line. Here's something, right? Then number two, I take these, so I take these shapes, I make sort of two rings around the courtyards and then one big sort of mammoth block. I extrude them up. Here's the sun, so I push and pull. I tweak this, I tweak that, so sort of branch them apart. Then I sort of slope this downwards step by step, right? Sort of terrace it off to the south for solar orienting. Then I push and pull. Then, so what they're doing is they're telling a story graphically, right? Step by step, how they went from a blank site to some massings to then something more nuanced, right? So I think that's kind of an interesting one to think about. Here, line weight and a little bit of color and tone begins to sort of pop, right? This is the same thing each time, but here they're showing, these sort of masses. Here they're showing this sort of flat outdoor space, right? Right? So the same snapshot of the same thing, each time they're highlighting something different with our, our tricks, line weights, and then a little bit of tone or contrast, right, with color, right, where you splash a little bit of color on, suddenly my eye's drawn there, right? Set of diagrams showing some of these things, right? There's a massing diagram, right? Kind of like what you guys have. So here, instead of making like blocks, right, what you could do is you could just color code these surfaces and say those are outdoor spaces, right? Those are balconies or gardens or whatever. Okay. Or put in some silhouettes of trees. Yeah. You have to have some deep roofs to plant trees, but here we go, right? Here we have a set of stuff. Here we have a set of stuff being subtracted, and then here's the result, right? So we have the starting point. We have these sort of solids sort of imagined, and then solids sort of disappeared like a Boolean subtract, right? Same thing here as we start to make Swiss cheese. This is one of your classmates, by the way. I'll probably meet her next year. Look at the detail on some of these things, right? You don't start with that much detail, but after a while, you start to build up detail. Again, talking about how to explode or how to sequence things, right? This is almost like a step-by-step IKEA instruction booklet, right? For how to put together a shelf or something. These are kind of some weird puzzle pieces, but same thing. Again, I see the outline of the building, but then let's say this gigantic atrium / coffee shop, right? Everything looks X-rayed. And then I actually render that bad boy out and it's darker. So then the lines turn white for the line weights around it, right? So there's contrast. And now suddenly, boom, I see this. I still have this as a reference to sort of see the outside of the building, right? So that's another way of thinking about this, right? How to X-ray something. You can always just keep that sort of, whether it's dashed or whether it's solid lines, right? That sort of outline of the overall massing, and then highlight certain features within and actually add tone or color there, right? I think that's a really nice drawing there. Yeah. Yeah. Here again, showing step-by-steps, connect the voids, connect the surfaces, then A plus B through a shared volume, right? So it's talking about sort of morphogenesis. How do you create these shapes, right? These relationships. They're starting with, I mean, look at this, right? They're starting with some, they're not complicated ingredients, right? Like a couple of blocks, then some subtractions, right? Then we look and then they X-ray the inside. So this is each time is like, here's what we started with, here's what we end up with, right? Here's a different aspect of this, what you looked at over here, right? Highlighting the different directional surfaces or faces. And then here's what it looks like on the inside volumetrically when we X-ray it, right? Right. So is this, I hope this is helpful. I mean, it's not like a formal lecture, but I mean, again, just looking at good examples of drawings, right? File these things away and keep looking at good examples of drawings, and you start to understand the tricks here, right? You start to just pick up on tricks that you can use, right? Maybe not exactly like any of these, but you still those tricks that you can use, right? Those are our craft, right? How to make effective communicative drawings. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, this might be the end of useful stuff here. Okay. I mean, I would just say while we're looking at this one, I mean, you can start to see why line weights can be so important, right? When we have all this context around, suddenly it's like, there's a mass. Okay, let's find out more about it. Here's a mass. Let's find out more about it. Here's a development. Let's find out more about it. Okay. So suffice to say, you could always do this stuff with Make 2D, right? And get this stuff out. But the other thing I would say is, let's see, let's leave those off. I'm just gonna, I turned on this clipping point. I'm just gonna turn that off, delete it, maybe. Okay. Is the shaders, right? So let's say you want this sort of color coded in a way. I'm just going to again show you this. If you want to try this out and you have some time to try this out over the weekend, awesome. If not, that's okay. We'll go over this again later on. But what I could do is if I go to my rendered viewport, let's see, let's turn my viewport to sort of rendered mode. All these things are going to be the same sort of generic. We call this usually like a white clay model rendering, right? It's basically like white plaster shader or material that's being applied to these, just generically. And so if I just go to my render settings, I'm just going to turn off for a moment. Come on, maybe. We're just going to turn off the ground plane. There we go. But what I can do is I can go to the materials tool. It looks like a tube of paint, like if you ever buy an acrylic paint, so you can get them in the tubes, and then and you can say import from material library, right? So I'm just hit the plus, and it gives you a bunch of pre-made materials here. And if I just go to white matte, which is the default, right? I get this material that they already are, right? But I can change the color. And now let's say I want to use that color. I'll do it again, import from material library, a white matte. This time I will change its color to it's complementary, right? You guys know the color wheel, color theory, complementary colors. They're across from each other in the color wheel. That's why orange and blue kind of look nice together. All right. So for instance, if I go to now my layers and I say, well, all the gallery stuff, I'm going to select all those objects. I'm going to go to my shaders and I'm going to go to my blue. I'm going to say assign to objects. So I'm going to say right click on it and say assign to all the objects that were selected. And I'm going to go back to my layers. And I'm going to say, let's see, offices and workshop, and let's see, storage. I'm going to make those all the same sort of color. Oop. There. So I'm going to say select all of these, select objects. And I'm going to go over here and I'm going to make them sort of yellow, orange. Right. Okay, right now I can start to take a screen capture of this axon, right? And I can see it here all put together and I can see it here all sort of broken apart, right? So again, I can go over and create a new one, import from material library, right? Same, this still white matte material. It's white and it's matte, right? It means the reflectivity and transparency are set to 0 and the glossiness is set to 0. That's really important. The more glossiness or reflectivity you have, the more bounces of light it has to do. And so the longer it takes to calculate the solution, right? The more math it has to do under the hood. So I'm just going to go here and look at its properties and change them. Let's say, here's some tennis ball. I don't know why you would use that, but whatever. And I'm going to go to classroom, and I'll make those tennis ball, for lack of a better word for this color. Assigned objects. Maybe I white matte. Use a violet or something here. It's a little more saturated for violet, but you get the idea, right? Cafe, gallery, lobby, or sorry, cafe, lobby. What else? Yeah, maybe I'll leave that. Is that select objects, right? Those sort of really public parts, right? So that's how I can begin to create a sort of color-coded diagram that's actually like would show up in the sort of final result here, the final presentation. right? So suddenly I have those, and then maybe one more. Let's see, import from material library. Not sure what I have left here, but it looks like maybe some living units and communal stuff. So maybe I'll communal. Let's see, hit control here. Control apartments. Maybe those are turned off by accident. I don't know. You know, or what have you. Let's see. Select objects. Yeah, those are on the top. Yeah, okay, perfect. You know, I'll go to this and I'll say, oh, let's see, set them to a sort of magenta or something. Signed objects, right? I mean, there's so many colors here, it kind of makes my teeth hurt just looking at it, but you get the idea, right? Maybe I leave the core as white, I don't know, or whatever. Or maybe I find like a sort of a gray, right? Just make it a little darker, stand out from the surrounding context. Yeah, there we go. Let's try that. Let's go with a gray. Yeah, that sounds good. And where's that stuff? Bridges and planes and things like that. Let's see here. Cores. So I'll select all those objects. I'll try to anyway. Don't quote me on this, and then say assigned objects, right? Now those get darker, right? So that's one way of thinking about this. Right? Another way to think about it is, you know, I could always do this, right? I could do a make 2D of just this overall mass, right? And I could do scene silhouette only. Hit OK. Oh yeah, that looks good. Let me see what this looks like, right? So now I get all of these sort of, you know, things around the edges. I guess I got all the visible curves too somehow. Huh, I thought I didn't do that, but apparently I did. Right, so I would go back through and just clean up and make sure I have all the scene silhouette here. I might have to add a couple of curves, right? Which is annoying, but it worked for some things, but not others, interestingly enough. But anyway, the idea here being that, you know, this could be the sort of datum, that sort of thing that's always dashed, right? And then I could do a make 2D of just like, let's say, all the core, bridge, and plane stuff, right? And turn off everything else. Yeah, why not, right? So then I could say make 2D of just this. Right, let's see. Tangent lines I'll turn on. Inline silhouettes. All right, group output. I'm going to say group output. That way it'll put it all in a group for me, so I can select it all at once. It should show up here over top of this, I would think anyway. Oh, except I turn that layer off, right? Okay. Right. All right, I thought there might be an easy way to do this, but apparently I was wrong. I'm just going to delete this really quickly. Let me check this out. All right, make 2D, try this again. Of course, right? So here's this part. I'm just going to just do this. All right, let's see. Hidden lines, no. Viewport rectangle, group output. I'll just group it all together, yeah. Let's see what we get here. Yeah, there it is. Right, so now we just have the core stuff together. I thought it was all grouped together. There's the, huh. Weird. Group output. Maybe that's just not as useful as I thought it was. For whatever reason, some of this is what is going on? Some of this line work is just white, so you can't see it against the white background. Display color. There we go. By layer. All right, fine. There we are. Yikes. Right, I can begin to put these on their own layers. So for instance, I don't have to use these same layers. I can say, make a new layer, and I'll call this core line work, right? I'll select all this stuff and put it on that layer. Let's see, core line work. There we are. Okay. Now, when we go back to this, let's say I want to turn everything on again, just so I get the overall thing here. Now, let's say I do another make 2D. I select the objects here, just select all this. Keep my fingers crossed. The scene silhouette, I'm going to turn off tangent edges. Well, maybe I'll leave those on. Scene silhouette. No, I'll just leave those off. Let's see, view from input layer, from input objects, group output. I'm not even going to worry about that. I'm going to hit OK. Yeah, all right, so there. We have something like that. So now I could take, let's say, the visible curves off. I could take these off. I could look at all this stuff. Let me just add another one. I'll call this building silhouette. I'll select all this stuff at once and just put it on that layer together. There we are. It looks like I have a little bit of cleanup to do. That's annoying, isn't it? It actually looks like I need a 30-degree line here, and then, yeah, so let's see here. Looks like this will go up. Re-enable my, there we go. Let me make, this is a 30-degree line, so I'll go ahead and just move that there, and then I'll trim these things out, TRMIM, select the cutting objects, and then select the parts that you want to trim. There we go. Right, I might have to go around and do that in a couple places and fill in some of these gaps. Again, that's kind of annoying to me, but it beats trying to draw all this stuff from scratch without any help. So I guess there's that, right? As I go around, again, I go to properties and I say, okay, layer will be building silhouette. I thought I already said that. And let's turn it all to black. Here we go. Right, so this should be a 30-degree line that connects these things up. Yeah, looks like it. Looks like I need to trim there and there. Right, using those right clicks and left clicks to maximum advantage. Here I need to make a copy of this because that's 30 degrees the right direction that I need to do that. It looks like that'll just end, so I can just draw that in, snap, snap. Okay, click, click. It looks like I have this little triangle here. Need to trim that out a little further. TRIM, select all of these and then TRIM, there we go. And then trim, trim, trim. Right click to accept. All right, and there's maybe a few other things. Maybe I just get rid of this. Oops. Or actually, I just trim it. Right, and just go ahead around the edges and clean this up just a bit here. Sad I have to do this, but whatever. It looks like I just have a little more trimming to do. Get rid of that, TRIM. And it looks like this gets blown away and this gets blown away. And that goes away. And then these two things go away. And last but not least, oh, oh, come on. Sorry, this I don't know why the scene silhouette seems kind of junky. I was hoping they would have fixed that by now. It's such a handy tool, but only when it works really well, you know, when it works consistently, you know. Anyway, right? So there's this sort of scene silhouette cleaned up a little bit better. I can see now I have 3 closed curves and 3 open curves. I don't want to know where the open curves are, but anyway, you get the general idea, right? So now when I take this into Illustrator, right? You know, I could let's see, there's core line work, building silhouette, bridge, core, and turn those off really quickly. You know, maybe I'll turn on, let's say, gallery, right? That seems pretty important. Right, so now maybe I'll do, oh, also the ground plane is on, right? Let's see here, turn it off really quickly. Outdoor. Right, so now maybe I do a make 2D of this. Right? Okay. Once again, it should show up. If I didn't change this around, it should still show up here just fine. Although again, it's not showing everything. I wonder why it's doing that. Oh, it's because the visible curves aren't on. Why do I still have visible curves? I guess maybe I never deleted that stuff. Let me just delete that stuff real quick. All right, do this one more time. But this idea of sort of keeping things on different layers can come again to your advantage as you start to pull different parts of what we've typically done as a whole entire drawing, but then think about it as snippets that we can selectively turn on and off. All right, where to go? Make 2D parallel view. Yep, hit OK. All right. Not sure what it's doing. All right, there we are. So here we can put this, we can select this stuff, we can make a new layer, and we can call this, let's say, galleries line work or something like that, right? Change their layer to galleries line work. Turn it so that they just all have the same layer color. Okay, and so then when I turn these things on and export them to Illustrator, right? Export selected. Illustrator. Diagram test 01. Just gonna say snapshot of current view. Hit OK. And now at the same time, I might just quickly do this, right? Like turn all this stuff on. Okay. And let's see. Make 2D of this, right? In other words, I can do the exploded versions here. Hidden lines. I'm going to turn on tangent lines. Let's see. Viewport rectangle, I'll turn on. Right, before I change anything around, I'm going to say view, capture to file, and also save this parallel transparent background. Okay. Save it to my desktop. Sure, why not? I'll use PNG just to try to stay in the habit. All right, here's the stuff we did over here. It's kind of nice looking. Try to select all of this and export select. File, export selected. And I'll call this diagram test 02, right? So several different ways you could begin to think about this. But again, it's just variations on the workflows you've already been doing, okay, each time, right? There's just more tricks to, and both in the software side of things and in the sort of graphic sensibility side, right? So now if I open that up in Illustrator, let's see what I have, and just to sort of demonstrate some of this stuff a little better. And again, this is not a requirement that you have to do this between now and Tuesday, but I wanted to sort of show you guys this. Even if you're not able to get to any of it and try it, at least you have it in your head. You know, you should have maybe a target now in your brain for where you want to be by the end of next week or something, right? Like generating these diagrams, right? Because we're going to be generating the drawings from these massing models now. Some very basic blocked out sections, very basic blocked out plans, and these sort of massing axons, right? So told you you'd get lots of practice. You're going to know this stuff by second nature. You'll like, you know, be able to do this blindfolded almost by the time we're done here. Just open both of these up. Yeah, there we are. All these solar diagrams. Whew. I got the chills, just, you know, the sort of creepy chills, just saying that out loud, but yeah, anyway. So, you know, here I have, let's say, the building silhouette. I can select that stuff. I can turn that to, let's say, 0.5 and turn it to dashed and make it something like 4 and 2 or something like that. Let's see what we have there. Yeah, it's kind of a nice thing, right? And then suddenly I can say, just turn these on, right? And now suddenly I can sort of see, you know, this stuff, right? You know, then I can turn that off and turn the galleries on, right? You know, I can make a copy of this and, you know, over and over again, just sort of making snapshots of the different diagrams so that, you know, I can sort of show them together. I didn't actually do a rendering of this to sort of underlay. Let's say I did want to add some color to this then, right? One way to do that is by selecting this stuff and making the sort of paint fill. So if I'm just going to lock that building silhouette, so I can just select just this gallery information. I can say object, remember, live paint, make. All right, now I'm going to go here. I'm going to say, I'm going to pick a different color. Let's say it's this one. I don't know why, but whatever. And I think it's this one. Yeah, if I click and hold, I can find the live paint bucket tool. And now I'll make all of these edges going this direction, this value, right? I'll make it just slightly lighter for the values in this direction, for the surfaces in this direction. And then the top gets the most light, so it'll be the lightest, right? Yeah, not so bad. Let's see, let's get that. And let's use that paint bucket, fill that in. Forgot to do that. There, and there, right? Let's get the paint brush or the eyedropper, right? Now the paint bucket again. Fill those in. Eyedropper, let's get that. Fill these in. I mean, I wouldn't recommend using that magenta color. I mean, it's nothing wrong with it per se, just not my cup of tea, but maybe it is for you, I don't know. You know, and then I could turn those off, turn these on, the cores, you know, maybe they are, golly, who knows? Maybe they are, again, sort of a cyan color. Let's see here. So I'll go ahead and select this stuff, object, live paint, make a live paint group. Now my paintbrush tool will sort of see this stuff. There we go. Oh, I guess I have to redo that color. So there we go. There. All right, here we go. Paint bucket these things. Right. So now we're doing it. Maybe you don't like gratuitous use of color. In which case, maybe you chill out with the color. Maybe it's about using some grays or, or something like that. Or, maybe not, I don't know. Let's see, let's make that a little lighter. Do these edges, right? That sort of light directionality, you can enhance that even with a sort of flat painting like this by sort of understanding that there's a darker side and a lighter side, right? Depending on where the sun's coming from, just sort of. Again, very simple sort of rules. And if you're consistent with them, then suddenly you have a set of diagrams. Here's one talking about the cores, and the next one talking about where the galleries are, right? You can do a set of snapshots like this, right? Over here with the exploded version, let me just change the size of this. Let's see, the width to, let's go with 9. Okay, maybe 10. I can go higher than that. 11. There we are. Oh. All right, so in X, I'll go with 5.5. It looks like an 11 by 11 document. Oddly enough, 5.5. Okay, and then over here I could make a new layer for an underlay. I'll lock these. Make this one the current layer. File, place that rendering I just had. Viewport capture. I'll make this 11 inches, right, in width. And situated at 5.5. Just give it those coordinates, same exact coordinates I gave the other one. And now it's just sort of making the visible curves and the scene silhouettes different line weights. So here's the visible curves. I'll turn those to something lighter. Turn them all to black, actually. Let's see here. There we are. That would probably help. Maybe they need to get lighter, like 0.25. Maybe that's too light. I don't know, we'll see. Scene silhouettes, let's see. Let's turn off that viewport rectangle now. We don't need it. Scene silhouettes, let's go with 0.75. And we'll make those darker, right? So you can begin to see from here, it's just simply making it a legend, right? So if I made a box like this, and I copied it and I pasted it in place and moved it down, and I copied both of these and pasted in place and moved them down, right? Copied, paste in place. Oops, move them down, right? And suddenly I say for the fill color, I use the eyedropper tool, I want to use this pink. For this one, I'm gonna find some of this blue. Gotta help if I selected this first. There we go, eyedropper, let's get that blue. For this one, let's get this tennis ball. I was playing Wii tennis earlier. Like I get some exercise, but in the air conditioning because it's so hot outside. I just wanted my 11-year-old to get exercise, so I did it with them. So let's see. All right. So then suddenly it's really easy to make a legend here. I just use the most nondescript font ever, like Arial or Helvetica, and say galleries. Right, let's see, let's turn that down. First of all, let's change the, there we go. Make it nice and tiny. We say, okay, galleries, copy, paste in place. We should be able to move them the exact same number, sort of up and down each time. Oop, right. Why is it not doing that? Okay, I'm hitting the wrong buttons each time. Paste in place, there we go. Copy, paste in place. Copy, paste in place. Oops. There. This is apartments for fellows and residents. Green is classrooms. Let's say this is whatever it is, workshops and offices. And this is lobby atria, which is the plural for atrium. and cafe or something like that, right? As soon as we know we don't need those, boom, right? There we go. So that's what I want you to be thinking of in your brain, even if you're not necessarily there yet, right? You know, think in terms of a diagram that really sort of shows and talks about, you know, how these things are stacked. And again, there's more than one way to do it, right? I could do a series of these, you know, where I start to build this thing up each time, right? Each time I can sort of see the overall building silhouettes. I can sort of understand the relationship between, let's say, the cores versus the galleries, you know, or whatever, right? Or I could keep everything on, but then pull them apart, right? So I can begin to see these things. Let's say, you know, I want to make it very clear that some of these edges line up, right? I can draw my own small line here. Just hold down the shift button to make sure that it stays vertical, right? I'll make sure that has a black stroke. I'll move it up just a bit here. Right, that's way too thick. Wow, that's like ridiculously thick. I'll put 0.25, maybe that's even too thick. And I'll make it a dashed line, 4.2. Yeah, I'm just gonna make it even thinner, 0.1 maybe. Yeah, these things don't have to be super duper. But then I can go ahead and do that here, right? And then show, let's see if I get it to line up with that and move down here. Right now I want it to look like it's back behind. So I'm just going to sort of move that down now. There we go. Resize it so that you can sort of see, it looks like it's being occluded from the back, right? Right. So again, playing these games, I think is really, you know, really helpful, right? We can put that there and then drag it down so it looks like it sort of continuing through, right? So that the stuff in front looks like it's in front, and the stuff that's back behind looks like it's back behind. See if I can get that to line up. There we go. Oh yeah, awesome, right? So, you know, you can begin to sort of draw those projection lines. Maybe they're light, but maybe they're too hard to see. I don't want them to make them darker, but maybe I just want to make them more dense. Maybe I say 2 and 1. Maybe I will make them just a little darker. Maybe I'll leave them like that, right? But again, so we can start to see the relationship between here's what it looks like together, here's what it looks like pulled apart, right? So aside from like all the little things that I did, but conceptually, is that helpful? I hope, right? I mean, I hope that sort of gets some more of your stuff going on, right? Like on you know, trying to sort of think about your, you know, how you could begin to tell the story, right, of what you're doing. Those diagrams that, you know, we saw in those TED Talks, you know, those famous starchitects. That's what they call starchitect. They call famous architects starchitects. But I said it out loud anyway. You know, it's not rocket science, right? Like anybody can do these graphics. But it's just about, you know, again, developing it and really asking yourself, what's the story you want to tell? That's where you just have to start, right? A couple of things are bugging me with this one. I can just sort of see it already. It really bugs me that line isn't dark. Oh, I'm just going to make a new dark line there. There we go. I'll bump that up to 0.75. Okay. I'll never open this file again, but I just couldn't let that go. Here we go, right? You know, I almost want to post this to Instagram. I'm kidding, of course. Looks like there's a little bit of cleanup here with the scene silhouette again. Ugh, that's so annoying. I wonder if there's a way to make it work better than it does. I'll look into that because it's kind of annoying to have to go back and clean this up, especially when it's just like rectangle. I mean, it's pretty normative geometries, right? Like extruded rectangles, boxes. Those shouldn't be too hard to draw the scene silhouette of. So I don't know why it's having such a hard time with some of these. Anyway. And of course, always hit Command S or Control S, save as you go. Keep that left hand on your keyboard, ready to hit save every free moment it gets so you don't lose work somehow if something goes wrong. Right? Same thing here. Just get rid of this. Wants to append some sort of tag called converted onto the file name. I don't want to do that. Just replace the old file. Okay, it's probably because it wasn't an Illustrator 2020 or 2021 sort of thing before, right? So, you know, it doesn't take much. I mean, that's what I want you to sort of understand, right? It doesn't take that much more to produce some really refined looking, professional looking graphics based off of the stuff that you're already doing, both with the planes and with the masses, right? So over the weekend, I want you to focus on the masses, on developing the massing models further, cutting them in section in 2 different directions each. When I cut a section through here, right? Let's say I'm really thinking about, you know, let's say there's a core here and an atrium here and stuff like that. I'm going to cut it in the most interesting place, right? So if I cut it and it looks like I'm cutting it through a wall, right? And all I see is like a set of doorways in a hallway and it looks like a layer cake and there's no vertical connections between spaces, then that's a really boring section, right? So if I have outdoor spaces and courtyards and atrium that go from almost the ground all the way up 5 stories, right? I want to make sure I'm cutting the section through that really interesting stuff as much as possible, right? So as you're looking at this and developing these schemes, start placing some clipping planes through them and look and see. You can always, again, just keep putting them on different layers and turn them on or off, and start to think about where you would cut a building section, longitudinal and transverse, right? One way in the other direction, you know, the sort of north-south street grid direction and the east-west street grid direction, right? Rotated by 26 degrees or whatever it is that downtown is. So, but that idea that you know, you're thinking about that now, because that'll begin to help you understand where you really need to develop, right? You don't need to develop the corner wall elevation of the broom closet. No one's ever going to see that in our drawings, right? You're going to be showing the most important stuff, right? How do I enter? How do I go up and down? You know, where are the sort of, you know, where are you bringing daylight in, right? How does this work with light, sunlight? Section is one of those primary drawings that we've typically used in order to sort of think about how daylight can bounce in, right? Or how we can screen daylight, okay? Or screen sunlight and just get bounce daylight into our buildings. So keep that in mind as well, right? Those sections can be really useful to you, even if they're really crude and blocked out at the moment, right? They're just for clipping planes through a bunch of masses, right? To understand where you have empty space and where you have set space, right? So then you could actually start to just sketch in, you know, in some of those empty areas, right? Do I put a wall here? Is this outdoor space? I put a little tree, right? If it is a hallway or do I, you know, maybe draw some stairways in, you know, right? Or a ramp or whatever it is, right? So you can begin to, again, make use of all the tools at your disposal, both the digital ones, and don't be afraid to sort of, you know, bust out either the paintbrush tool in Photoshop and try to sketch that way, or the stylus on your iPad, or printing this out on a piece of paper and getting a pen and pencil out, okay? All right, so, but I do hope that stuff sort of helps. And I'm saying, like, you know, what I want to see on Tuesday is a set of models that we can have a discussion around, and then we can start talking about, let's start extracting these diagrams in some basic blocked out plans with the clipping planes, and then some basic sections again with the clipping planes, right? So that's the name of the game next week, right? Hopefully by next week in the morning class, we'll start talking about perspective. So, you know, we can, again, we'll turn that corner. So you can always sort of see what's coming up next in the studio by what we're doing in the morning class when it comes to sort of representational tools and drawing types, okay? All right, so did I stop recording? I'm going to stop recording.